Right, so sitting up in your chair, and just to start, rubbing your hands together for the self massage. Gently tapping over your face. Nice steady rhythm. But light movement on your face. Over your head and neck. Shot. Wrong. The other side. Upper part of the chest. And your belly. Okay, settle back. Your body sinking into the chair. I'm feeling that your thoughts are sort of dropping into an awareness of your body, your posture, your breathing, feeling of rooting down. And with that rooting down feeling, it's sort of draining away, dissolving away of tightness and stiffness. Feel the impact of that on the rest of the body again. So your breathing and so on, circulation. You can sometimes get a little sort of tingling or throbbing, warmth in your fingertips, for instance. Hand on your belly and just feel the rise and fall of your breath, the in-breath to the out-breath. And notice that at the end of the in-breath, at the end of the out-breath, and the transition from one stage to another, there's a very natural, very slight sense of pausing or slowing down, perhaps. Like you might slow down to walk or ride around a corner. And draw your feet back in, come back to the upright position, feet below your knees, weight a little bit forwards and just try and just soften a little bit in your toes, in the muscles, in the sole of your foot. So it feels as though your feet are sinking into the floor a little bit. And then just try and find that releasing feeling going up through your legs, so ankles and calves and knees. Notice if there's any feeling that you're trying to resist this movement of your weight down into the sole of your foot on each side. And if you do identify that, maybe your calf muscle or whatever is pulled in tight, then you just find a way to release it a little bit. Same thing in the thighs and the hips and lower back. at the front of your body, and really all or most of the internal organs and the rib cage just hanging slightly from that stronger feeling in your back, shoulders dropping down. Arms and hands resting. Just feel the weight of your arms on your legs. Loosen, soften your fingers so hands have a slightly curved quality about them, with the thumb slightly curved in. So the palm of your hand has a very gentle concave feeling. And one way that we describe that, one way that we use to get that is if you place the center of the palm of your hand on your kneecap, and then just let your fingers touch your leg, just wrap around your leg as much as possible. And when you take your hand away, this is the hand, the basic hand shape, the basic hand form as it's referred to, that we want to maintain, you know, when we're doing this, and this, and this, and so on and so forth. There's a few very specific instances where it changes, of course. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky, we wrap the fingers around. Punch with both hands, we wrap the fingers in to make a proper fist. There's probably a few others as well. But when we do that, we want to retain this open, soft feeling that we have in the initial form. So this can be quite a useful guide. And it's one of those things where we begin to relate strongly to the feel of it. Now just slowly turning your head, looking for that fluid quality in the movement, not just moving through water, but perhaps moving like water. Although we're not necessarily doing this with a breathing pattern, see if you can notice that same sort of slowing down, almost pausing quality between stages, between, you know, one direction and another. Hands in front of your shoulders, circling back. And then forwards, being nice and smooth in the upper part of your back and your chest. Your hands drop down, winding around. And then raising your hands, sort of winding movement. This time more like you're winding up string or cotton, or traditionally it would be silk thread. And excuse me, back the other way. Rest your hands. Now tilting forward, so more of your weight going into your feet, and see if this produces a response in your legs somewhere, a response of tightness. And again, whether you're able to just encourage that tightness, that resistance to dissolve away. Turn just a little bit. So now the head going towards one side, towards one knee. Feel the difference between the leg that your weight is in and what we would refer to as the empty leg in Tai Chi. So the movement of your weight is sometimes characterized as going from full to empty. The area of the body that's carrying the majority of the weight being the full side. So try on the other side. Notice any difference between one leg and another. And around in a circle. So now your weight across from one foot to another, back in to the hip behind and across to the opposite hip. Governed by this turning movement in the center of your body. Nice smooth feeling of movement above that. Back the other way. And back to the center. Push one heel up, step through, put your heel down, lower your toes, pull back. The leg expanding, contracting. Good, and then the other side. Good. And bring your feet parallel. Your hands drop down. Turn them palm forwards again. And this time combining the transfer of your weight with the winding of your arms. The bird folds its wings. Front of your body expanding. Maybe taking a breath in there. If it's comfortable. Contract. And then change to fisherman castanet, palms of your hands facing backwards. Remember that slightly cupped feeling in your hands and your fingers. Don't hold it rigid like that. And then rolling the ball in. So the shoulders going back, pulling on your arms and your hands. Expansion up to the front of your body. as with the previous two movements, the weight leading the way into your feet, into your hip, into your feet, into your hip. The shoulders following that movement, your arms following the shoulders. One more time. Make the change start in the same way, but as your hands come up, turn them palming. So rotate your arm, sit back, pigeon spread its wings. Now you can really feel the movement in your chest, upper back. Then next time you're forwards, let your elbows come back, and then out a little bit, drawing your hands in front of your belly, pushing away. Gentle expansion in the front of your body. Slightly stronger feeling, of course, to this one with this idea of pushing against something, maybe against water, or sometimes referred to as pushing the boat. An idea of the kind of feel of it. That's a useful image to you. And then hands fisted. Remember, it's a hollow fist with that same sense of softness in the palms of your hands. And then turning your hands out, winding around. Again, chest opening. And as you go forward, chest closing a little bit, but your back open. Good. Bringing your hands through one more time, and then change into polishing the table. Turning as though your hips are being pulled back into the chair, and then swing around back to the upright. The other side, hips dropping back, and then swinging across to your right if you're new in my movements. One more time in each direction. And just see if you can keep the flow, the rhythm of the movement going, changing from a series of horizontal movements to a series of vertical movements, lengthening through your back and contracting. One more time. Change into the wild goose. Again, note the changeover, nice simple changeover. And again, these moments tend to come in these moments that I've described as pausing. I'm not sure pausing is quite the right word. It's a slowing down of whatever movement is there. It's a minimalizing of whatever movement is there. Same thing here, going into part in the cloud. You get to the end of this movement, and then you start the next. We can tell by the way our arms are gently going up that it's quite a strong movement, and yet retains that softness of the body, particularly your shoulders, up and back. One more time. So again, there's time for a nice smooth transition to the next movement. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Be careful not to reach too high, as though your arms being pushed up as a result of this developing expansions through that side of your body. Now we're going to go to both hands, and again, perhaps more significant in terms of those pauses are the ones where you draw into our center as we do now. We're prepared to just settle there for a moment, not to rush ahead. It's a very difficult habit to get out of, particularly if for instance, you're looking at this exercise and you can't quite remember the order, or you get a bit confused in one way or another. There's always a temptation to sort of plunge in and rush after things. So this is just a sense of before we take any action, settling, grounding ourselves. That's not to say that you would never want to move fast, but you do it as it's appropriate. One more round. Okay. One foot extended, this time resting on the heel, scooping the seam and looking at the sky. Because your foot's on the heel and your toes are up, chances are it keeps your weight back a little bit, which is what we want. And then changing to grasping the tiger's ears. Hands going back and circling over as you go forwards. Hands loosely fisted again. One more time. Change up. And change, grasping the tiger's ears. That's the long feeling in your back at the end of the movement there. Good. And sit back once again. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths and just begin to move the weight forwards and backwards again. But this time with a little turn. Once again. Just feeling the movement around the edges of your stance, the outside of the leg down to the outside of the foot across, the outside of the opposite leg and back into the hip and so on. So this movement moves our shoulders, and shoulders will move the arms. We're going to do the exercise polishing the table. So say on your left, go forwards more towards your left foot, swing round, letting your arm extend out as you go across to the right, then coming back towards the center, and your left arm draws your right hand, extends out, turn, and then that swaps over. As though your hand were just resting on water, skimming the surface of the water. So stir in the beans. Hands stay just a little bit above your hips. Good, and then just let your hands rest again. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths and just remind yourself of this basic posture. We call it the Wu Chi posture. Whether seated or standing, you know, have feet hip width apart, so on and so forth. But one of the main features of it is being in this stance that is upright, that allows for the pull of gravity to work through your body, and perhaps realizing what the obstructions there are. And then, you know, I talked earlier about releasing tightness, stiffness, your ankle, your knee, for instance. The same kind of idea, hips sinking down, breath coming nice and easy. And then rubbing your hands together and again tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. The shoulder, your arm. On the other side. Upper part of your chest. Your belly. And your legs. Using your feet to push your knees up and down, so working the calf muscles, the thigh muscles, as though you're just sort of pumping them to get the circulation going in them again, which is basically what you're doing. The alternately, if you like, but then circling around, so trying to feel that movement back into your hips, muscles at the sides of your thighs. And then back the other way. Good. Right. And then standing. Take your time when you stand. Remember that quality of the pause. We can get ourselves in almost a panic sometimes, as though everything that we do has to be done immediately at that point. Tai Chi talks about the stillness within the movement. It's not referring to the speed that we move at, but rather more to do with the kind of mindset that we do whatever we're doing. I was teaching a class recently, and just a private session for a particular establishment. And there's one woman who always comes to the class, and she's restless. She's always fiddling around, and when she moves, she moves a bit quickly, but not particularly quickly. But there's always this sense that she's somehow in a hurry. If somebody walks along the other side of the room, she has to sort of like look over there and sometimes wave to them or something like that, and constantly having to do things in a sense. And this quality of stillness within the movement counteracts that. It's a tendency that we all have. We have to do everything right now. The stillness within the movement, perhaps stillness is the wrong word, perhaps it's space within the movement is a better term. So some Tai Chi movements are done quite quickly. It's a martial art after all, and there are fast movements and so on and so forth. So we don't really do them in these sessions. But it's almost as though there's a kind of right time. Imagine if you drive, if you're taking a feeder road onto a motorway, you're going quite fast, but you've got to sort of sit back a little bit and see where the spaces are, where you can insert yourself into the flow of traffic. So although the car itself is moving fast, you have to sort of focus a little bit on the whole kind of environment. And that stillness, that space within the movement has some of those qualities to them. So it's very characteristic, I think, of Tai Chi, and really one of the sort of benefits of Tai Chi. Not that we can't move fast when we're required, is that we're not necessarily speeding in our mind, shall we say. So then just sinking down, bringing your hands around, pushing up. And sinking. From the hips going back. Hands moving no further than your shoulders as they go up, your hips as they go down, and quite possibly, as mine are at the moment, a lot less than that. So a reflective quality in what we do that enables us to just engage with the movements that we're feeling within the body, to work with them a little bit more fully, a little bit more creatively. Changing now to the wild goose. And then part in the clouds. Do one more of these, and at the end of it, going back into routine down and doing the little sequence of 3. So again, gives us there's that slowing down, and then we do the movement, slowing down at the top of the movement, slowing down at the bottom as we make the change. And it's very easy, even in a very simple sequence like this, to sort of get to here. Well, I've got to change, to do that quickly. But take your time. Notice the way the movement creeps up through your body, the feeling of expansion and contraction. Starting in the belly, then going into the solar plexus as you go into the wild goose, and then belly, solar plexus, and once again parting the clouds. And that reflects that movement that we want to feel in our breathing. So you could introduce to this particular pattern a breathing pattern. You only really the best time to try it out is when you do parting the clouds, because that's the one where we get the fullest expansion, belly, solar plexus, and up into the chest. That would be the in-breath. And start the set over again, gradually building. One more round after this one. Good. Okay. 1 foot forwards. Transfer your weight. Settle. Pause. Find that sense of space. If you're finding the idea of the stillness baffling, I'm not sure what the original Chinese term, but there is this phrase in the Chinese writings that we should seek the stillness within the movement. I wouldn't be surprised, I have no idea whether it's true or not, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that another translation, interpretation of that would be the space within the movement. They're all just names, labels that we apply to try and describe a particular feeling. And those feelings don't have necessarily accurate terms that we can apply to them. But in those moments, you begin to raise your toes and your heel. So it's very difficult to describe a feeling with one word. You know, poets tend to use lots of words to describe feelings and qualities. The Chinese language is a character-based language. So in some senses, their written language is more like a series of pictures. And you know, imagine trying to describe a picture in one word. It would be very, very difficult. You could describe your reaction to it. That makes me happy or whatever, but to describe the entirety of the picture will be very difficult just using one word, stepping in. So the words that we use in association with the practice aren't necessarily precise in their definition in the way that we might use words if we were writing a letter to somebody, say. The the so-called Tai Chi classics. It's a bit of a distraction, but if I can lay my hands on a copy of it right now, which is unlikely probably, I'll dig out next time I do a class with this group. I'll dig out a copy of it. But they're often described as songs or poems. Have your other foot forwards. So that's the kind of mindset that we want to approach these ideas with, rather than getting stuck on a term. So stillness, spaciousness, quietness, those are the kind of things that we experience in those transitional moments from one stage of a movement to another, from one movement to another. Just as we feel it between in-breath and out-breath, out-breath and in-breath, raising your toes and your heel. And we see from this exercise that that quality enables this quite difficult movement of just building up towards taking the step. So it's not inactive in any sense of the word. And stepping in the same way that sleep is in one sense, a kind of active function. If we can't sleep, it's not necessarily just because we've got too much energy. It might be the wrong type of energy. And then stepping through. And back the other way. Okay. Left foot forwards. Start with your hands on your belly. Pushing forwards. Pigeon spreads its wings. This movement, pushing your arms out a little bit and drawing back. Feel the front of your body expanding with that movement, while your back contracts in very gently, reversing as you go back. And then changing, fisherman cast the net. But it's in that settling, spacious moment that the arms just continue to swing and swing past the hips. It's in that moment of settling that we load the front leg, ready to push us back. So it's not an absence of movement, not an absence of anything really. And then changing, pushing away. Remember that shape in the palm of your hands. Try not to hold your fingers rigid. So you're pushing into water. One more time. Just let your hands flatten out, sink back and turn. Let the movement just swing your arms up as you settle into the back foot, and then drawing your hands forwards and across the front hip and out. Good. Shake out. So on the foot forward, same set of 4 movements. Pigeon spreads its wings. Not letting yourself get rushed. And then change in fisherman castanet. Push and wave. This time, coming back, drawing your hands down. And just turn your front foot out slightly, so this time use that slight angle outwards to help you come through with the step. Bring this foot in, but then this time, just take a step back. You settle into the supporting leg. Take your time. And bringing your feet parallel. Check it out. Lovely. So find your chair again. So we learn that being active doesn't mean that we have to be frenetically active, shall we say. We can be active and busy and get things done, sometimes much more efficiently, if we can also retain that more spacious, that still quality. There's much value in Tai Chi terms, as is witnessed by this closing exercise that we do. This is always the way that either a sequence of movements, a form, or a Tai Chi session will close with some kind of slowing down, some kind of grounding exercise. So let your hands drop down, embrace tiger, return to mount.